catch you guys up to speed real quick. All I did was go around the back and sides with the Wall 5-star balding clipper, created a line just underneath that. I went with the Wall 5-star electric shaver, feathering into that first line that I made so I don't create another line underneath it. So I just very carefully pepper it into there, move it around a little bit, and just don't push it down too hard in that area. Also, I didn't fade off the very front edge. I didn't cut that off all the way. I want to leave some hair there in the front so I can eventually do the edge up towards the end of the cut. So now I'm going around the back and sides with any regular wall you can use for this in the open taper position, and I'm going to create a second line.
You can take a guard and just see what's going to happen with when you cut it just by judging on the bottom here. So I'll begin his cut because a lot of people told me to not do it with clipper over comb. So for this time I'm just going to do it all clipper work for you. I'm going to begin with a 4 and I'm going to open it. And at this point, if you were using a brush, it's a good time to switch to a comb. With this 4, you can go up pretty high, especially because you have to figure you're going to need the 4 open, 4 closed, 3 open, 3 closed, 2 open, 2 closed, all the way down to the 0. If you guys got any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm with the 3 right now. You can do the 3 open to begin with. I'm doing the 3 open. I'm not really getting much. I'm not making any lines. I'm just going to close it. And you want this to be just above the parietal ridge. And the parietal ridge is when you take your comb, you lay it flat on the head, right where it leaves the hair. That's that ridge that extends around the entire head. So I want this one to be just above it because I want my number 2 to be able to come up right about at it. Maybe just slightly above it as well. Right now I'm like laying this clipper. If you get a front view, like I lay this clipper on its side, right, and I got this kind of hovering, so this is not touching him. So I move it down just a little bit. So then that way, like, if you accidentally, you're not going to make a line. That's what it basically boils down to. So I can leave this like out just a little bit, and I can inch into that very carefully without making a line. You can do that with any guide clipper and put it on its side. So right now I have the 2. I'm just going to go with it closed. I'm scooping out. If you were afraid to make a line, you could easily open this and see how that's going to go. I know it's not going to do much. I'm going to close it. And I'm also angling it just like I was. And notice that now the clipper is going to remain on an angle because I don't want to have to put a line in here.
It's not enough.
Alright, so now the actual fade is going to begin here. I'm going to take this 1.5 and I'm going to open it. I'm going to go just till I hear a little bit of noise. Hear a little bit of noise, keep it on an angle, and I can switch back to my brush again. What would I do if I made a line here? Anybody know?
If you need a line, you would go in with the 1. Open?
No.
You would close it.
No, no. No, I would go back to number 2.
Number 2, okay.
And I can go back to number 2 open, or I can go back to number 2 closed, depending on the severity of the line. So what I want you to do is just like, if a mistake happens, if something happens, just don't freak out. Take a deep breath, think your way through it.
Don't freak your customer out.
Facial expression.
Yeah, don't freak your customer out. Keep that poker face. Fake it till you make it. So I'm just using a combination of some open and some closed, trying to give myself enough room so when I want to blend that into my number 1 and into my 1/16. So getting into that area, feel like I've done that pretty well, like what I'm seeing. So I'm just going to continue my progression downwards. I went from a 1.5, which is your average white guard, leaves the hair 3/8 of an inch long, to a number 1 that leaves a 1/8. And I'm going to now open this, and as you get down to the shorter numbers, you got to start being a little bit more careful. And as you move into it, stretch the skin, loosen the skin, stretch the skin, loosen the skin. And just start being a little bit more careful that you don't go too high, that you don't create a line. And if you do create a line, then what do?
Because that's a 1, you go to a 1.5.
There you go.
Open or closed.
There you go. So I just went around with it open all the way. Now I'm going to close it. And you're going to notice a pretty fair difference with this one closed opposed to when it was open. And you're also going to see that the fade is starting to really get a little more smooth. I just opened it a little bit because I seen a spot. Open it a little bit if you see a spot, close it. Get back to what you were doing. That's right. 1/16, otherwise known as your half. And we'll use it in the open position. We'll just start taking care of little things that maybe we couldn't get with our 1. Because actually this blade open with the other blade closed are very close to each other in length. So I think the mistake I see people make most often is they want to get down to the lower numbers almost too fast. They waste, they waste the opportunity with this, and they wind up having to go back to this over and over. That's why I'm just really carefully moving down, taking gradual steps, making sure that I've completely done everything I can with this guard before I move to the next. I might still have to switch back, yes, but my odds of switching back are going down. So now, rather than go all the way closed with this guard, I'll probably leave it about halfway open and see what that accomplishes. Now remember, I made that 1 bar line with it open all the way. Of course, I can go back and attempt to clean up anything that maybe I missed. But mainly I'm going to probably have to close this about halfway now. And now I'm going to really get rid of that last line. And this last line should come out pretty easy. If you make any mistakes, just simply open it up a little bit. And clean it up. I'm going to actually close this now. And I'm going to hit up the whole front of this hair that I left long with it closed. I also see a lot of students I see a lot of students going over and over the same spot when the clipper's not making any noise. If it's not making any noise, guess what?
It's not cutting.
You're not cutting. So you're wasting time when you're not cutting. A little bit. So what's going to happen here is he's going to get it edged up over and over again, and if you're not careful, you'll push this back a little bit too far. So sometimes what I really like to do is just get in there and just cut those hairs just a little bit shorter without touching the rest of his hairline. So I'll begin with that, just very carefully arching this clipper out, kind of blending that in just a little bit. And just knock them down. Now, a lot of times you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, oh, I hope it's the same on one side as the other. You know, all that. Don't even worry about it. When you do your edge, it's going to come out. And you're going to see it's perfect after that. So, speaking of which, I will jump to my edges now. And I want to clean this area a little bit here. Because I want that skin line to fade into that other line that I just made. Now I'm just going to come back right over top of that area I went with my skin line, because these are another step shorter. And I'm going to begin his edge. A couple of things I'm doing that you may not notice. I'm using my finger here as an anchor. And I'm just lifting it. And now he's going to have a nice clean edge that he wouldn't have had I cleaned it off all the way. So, I mean, let's say that you had a line that you couldn't get out and you tried with all the other stuff. You could obviously go back to your 5-star shaver, but that could also cause you problems. You could simply take this trimmer and flip it upside down and you'll get that last little bit that you need. Gotta be careful with that though, because it's also a good way to cut the client, scratch them, but it's also a good little trick that you can use if you've kind of exhausted your other efforts. I recommend that you do that. One of you guys are probably going to have like a side that your edge ups are easier for you, and then another side that, you know, you have a little more trouble with. I mean, it's going to come with time that it gets better, but you just got to learn how to anchor correctly and get a nice smooth curved line. You know, a lot of times people ask me like, what are you looking for when I'm making this line? They see me go back in there and mess with it a couple more times. What I'm looking for is basically like, if I had something round and it was a whole circle, I could set it in there and I would have that nice round shape. I'm looking for it not to have any flat spots and make sure that it's just as smooth and as round as it can be. Also, with a lot of clients, I'm also not trying to take out too much of their hairline. In this case, he's requested it, so I'm going to do that, but I always try to avoid that. So right there, you can see where the skin kind of meets that front line, and you can see where he's going to have that nice edge, especially after I put the razor on it. It's going to look nice. With the edge, I try to do that with it facing you, but I always try to tell you guys, make sure that you use the mirror. If you don't use the mirror, you're not going to get it good. What I like to do, his edge is pretty good, so I'll start in the middle, but what I like to do is I like to look for an imperfection. So like, let's say that this side was really high, then I obviously wouldn't start on this side, because you emphasizing the fact that it's high is not going to make it any better. So if it's really high on one side, I'll go to the low side and I'll start there. So in this case, it seems to be actually a little bit higher on this side than this side, so I'm just going to come across and lightly graze. I'm not really trying to make it perfect just yet. I'm just getting in there and putting a nice little line in. Again, you should be looking back at your mirror multiple times during this process and making sure that you're on point here, which I probably am not, and need to make sure by using the mirror myself. However, I want you to see. On this side of the edge, I'm also going to use my anchor again, just anchoring, and I'm going to kind of just shove that into his temples here. Also use the corner of the blade this way. And some folks like to just bring it down, hit the blade a couple of times, really try to get those corners nice and squared off, while at the same time not pushing his edge too far back.
Oh, I don't want to be.
So got a little bit of cleanup work left to do. I'm just going to use the scissor over comb technique and just smooth off the edge just a little bit here. No haircut's complete without this step. Alright, so I'm just going to take a little bit of shaving cream mixed with water, and I'm just going to work it into his hair and all the areas I plan to shave. Alright guys, that's the skin fade with the front edge still there. Thanks for watching. That's good.